What's up, SC Nation? Welcome back to another video. My name is Ramzi Majaba. In case you didn't know me, welcome. If you do know me, welcome back. The videos are always about questions I usually get from a lot of different people or some thoughts that pop into my mind. But this time, I've had several of this question come up, which is, I'm talking to a startup. Should I keep talking to them? Or I'm getting an offer from a startup. Should I take it? Or should I go look for a large organization? And I will answer the way every single sales engineer answers when asked a question like that. It depends. It depends on many different factors, and we're going to talk about what those factors are. The first factor I want to understand from your end is, what is your goal? I talked to some SEs, and their goal is to be a CEO one day. In my mind, if you want to be a CEO, you have to learn from CEOs, and you have to be as close to CEOs as possible. So should you work at a startup? Yeah, it's a good plan to think about working at a startup. Now, the question is, do you have the skills to do that? And we'll talk about that in a second. But your goal could be something completely different. It could be to have a stable job where you don't work past 5 or rarely work past 5. It's not too much hassle, and you can go see your kids doing jiu-jitsu, in my case. Every day at 5 p.m. or whatever it is. In that case, startup life might not be the best suited for that kind of role. And there's nothing wrong with that. We work to live. Some people live to work, which is fine, but most people want to work to live. And if you want to go watch your kids play soccer, play basketball, play football, play hockey, tennis, whatever, there's nothing wrong with having that goal. Just giving you permission in case you needed it. Go look for a big company. Now, not all big companies are created equal in the sense that you're not overworked. Some large organizations still ask their SEs to work 10-hour days, or they have more often than not weeks where they're working long hours. If that's the case, you might need to figure that out during the interview process or do your research ahead of time talking to other people. And there are goals anywhere in between. Another factor to consider is your experience level or skill level. Are you brand new to sales engineering? Have you ever been a sales engineer before? Internships don't count, because as an intern, you do a lot of things that is not sales engineering. It's more like, I don't know, getting people coffee. Or have you been doing this for a while and you're looking for a new challenge that will excite you, invigorate you if you're bored as a sales engineer? If that's the case, there are other options as well. Startup is not the only way to go, but it is a good option. If you think about the stages of a company, you have a startup, 10 people or less, where they're just coming up. They're bringing in their new first SE. That means the first SE is going to have to build the sales engineering process while working with the salespeople, while working with customers to help close deals. Otherwise, the startup is going to go kaput really quickly. You have to learn the products. You have to learn how to sell the product. You're probably going to be doing a lot of other things as a startup sales engineer, because people in startups wear multiple different hats. So I was talking to a startup recently, and they were looking for their first SE to be an SE, so to do the pre-sales stuff, to do implementation, and to do post-sales. And that's just the things that they thought about before they had the chat. So probably they're going to end up doing marketing. They're going to end up doing a bunch of the other stuff. You're also going to be without a backup as a SE. I mean, sure, the CEO who's been doing the sales engineering job, or the CPO, whoever it is, can actually help you, but they're also busy doing their own things, so you're gonna probably have a hard time taking a vacation day. And there's always a risk of not getting funded. So these are all things that come with being the first SE. And the way I've said it as a negative, but many people want to build the pre-sales process. It's not a bad thing. I would love the ability to build a pre-sales process from scratch, get buy-in from the CEO who has been doing this, or the CPO who has been doing this for a long time. Also, building an onboarding process, because I might not be hiring this year or next year, but by the time I'm hiring, I don't want to have forgotten what it was like for me to be onboarded. So you're going to have to build that as you're getting along, probably. And this could be exciting to many people. Now, again, if you don't have any sales engineering experience, how are you going to build the pre-sales process when you don't know what pre-sales is? How are you going to do the job without someone teaching you? The CEO has probably never been an SE in their life, and now they're doing the job, but they're doing it as a CEO, which is much easier to sell as a CEO than a salesperson or a sales engineer. Another pro about working for an early stage startup is that you're mostly hunting for new opportunities, new customers to onboard. I mentioned last time in a previous video, hunting versus farming, where hunting is going out and finding new customers all the time, whereas farming is growing the customers that you have. So which one would you like? These are all factors that would affect you making the decision to be the first SE as a company if you have pre-sales experience. More than 1 year, preferably more than 5. Even if you're the third or fourth SE to a company, without prior experience, it will be very difficult. So keep that in mind. Now, as you get to later stage startups that have been doing this for a few years, they know what they're doing, it might be an easier option to take that role if you're not an experienced SE. Or if you're an experienced SE as well. Now, at this point, if they have a good process already built, if they have onboarding already built, if they're a good pre-sales oriented company, then it would be a good role to take. You might not want to take that role if they're not a pre-sales oriented company, or at least they value their pre-sales engineers. And the things that you'd have to figure out is, who do you report to? Will they support to teach you the product or to teach you how to be a sales engineer for that company? If the product has been out for a while, do you even like it? If you don't like it, then don't take the job. It'll be very hard for you to sell something you don't like. Or you're going to have to figure out why customers like it and understand that. Some of the pros that I see for working at that kind of startup, or any kind of startup, is as it grows, you're automatically a senior. If you're the first SE to a company, you're the head of sales engineering. Patrick Pisang, he created a video about why people should work at a startup. And on his channel, I have my own video of why people should work for large organizations. So check that out. The most enticing thing about working for a startup is the payoff when they exit. If a larger company buys them or if they go public, the people working for that company are set to make a good crap ton of money, although crap ton might be an exaggeration. But you will make some additional money. Now, the larger the organization gets, and maybe larger is not the right term, the more established they are, as in the longer they've been around, because I've seen smaller companies with 50 to 100 people that have been around for 30 years and act as if they have 1 million people working for them. The more research you're going to have to do, because some organizations have an SE process or a pre-sales process, some do not. My company does not. Every SE does whatever they think is right, and they don't work together on a lot of cases, and they do things differently. So everybody has their own SE process, and it might not be the right process. In many cases, it's not. For example, if a customer asks for demo licenses, they just give it to them instead of actually asking questions. And other things to look at is, who does the SE report to? Do they report to sales director, or do they report to an SE manager who reports to a global head of sales engineering? Each one will tell you if they're pre-sales oriented or they're resource oriented, as in an SE is a free resource. When you talk to a salesperson, you get the feeling that they treat you as an equal, or again, as a free resource, or as a subordinate, as an employee of theirs. And one thing to understand is, where do you fit as an SE into the sales process? Right? Are you coming in late in the later demo stages, or are you coming in early with the discovery, or are you being used to qualify deals? Where do you come in? The thing about working with bigger companies that I've noticed from personal experience, it's much harder to influence culture. You might be able to influence the culture of your team to an extent, but not the company as a whole. Also, the impact that you have on that company may not be very apparent, because there's 1 million SEs, as an example, and most of them are hitting quota or not hitting quota. What is it that you're doing differently that will make you show or glow amongst other SEs? And the thing that I've noticed about larger organizations, most of them, is that the time demand is much less than startups. And that's very dependent also on the individual. If an SE knows how to manage their time, they know how to say no, they're not as overworked as SEs who don't know how to manage their time and don't know how to say no. Also, with larger organizations, people can go unnoticed, as in they can sneak by doing minimal work. Although I don't see it as much with sales engineers as I do. Well, I don't see it as much. Some things to consider beyond the size. Do SEs like working for that company? I know a specific company where I've talked to several SEs that work there that just simply hate it, and they think it's toxic and they want to leave. And for some reason they can't. When you're doing your research about a certain company that you want to join, make sure you talk to other SEs who work for that company and see if they like it. Because it's very bad to leave a company that is okay. Maybe you're being paid less than you think is market rate. go to a company where you're paid well and they treat you like crap, and now you feel like you're in a golden handcuff situation and you don't want to go back to your old job, make sure you do your research ahead of time. Another thing is pay. Startups, some of them, are strapped for money. So they don't pay as much, but they give larger equity. Other startups have funding and they pay quite a bit. And they also give equity. Where are you in that range? Where do you want to go? I talked to Larson Starr on the podcast. I'll link it somewhere. He's the CEO of Gondola.io, which I highly recommend. They're not paying me to say this. I actually love that product. And he talked about negotiating equity. In a lot of startups, he said he can't pay, but his rule is the salary has to cover your life expenses. If the salary is less than life expenses, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be stressed. Don't take that job. But if the salary covers it, then you can negotiate equity. And the thing about startups as well is they're very flexible. If the market rate changes, they can change. I mean, they might not be able to afford it, but it's not HR stopping it. Whereas larger organizations, they have rules, and it's so hard to get past their stupid rules. For example, in a previous company of mine, if someone moves from one team to another, they're not allowed to get a raise. They can't negotiate a raise with the move, even if the move is to a senior position or a senior role. For example, I moved from network support to network design. Network design is a more senior role than network support. There are senior people within network support, but the role itself, design versus support, is considered within that company to be more senior. I was not allowed to get a raise. I did have to negotiate quite hard to get some stuff, but generally speaking, you don't get a raise. It's not the same at every company, but every company has its own HR rules that they are not allowed to bypass or go over. And right now, with the market or with the inflation going up, rates should go up for almost everybody. HR will have a hard time actually allowing that. So these are some things to consider while you're applying for jobs or trying to get a job at a startup versus a large organization. And if you found this useful to you, I would greatly appreciate if you like. So you can keep getting these videos if you subscribe. And more importantly, if you know anyone who would benefit from this video, please share it with them so they know what to do, I think. Anyways, that's it for me for today. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time. Now get back to work. Peace.